Hi, this is TheHande Mäkinen, and in this video, I'll be ranking all the platformers I've ever played. Okay, not really. But you might remember that last year I did a video, or rather a two-part video, where I ranked all the adventure games that I have ever played. And adventure games and platformer games are two of my favorite game genres. Now, if you were to ask me, for instance, like what I think some of the greatest games ever made are, I would say it would be stuff like Monkey Island, Gabriel Knight, and Grim Fandango. But if you were to ask me what kind of games do I regularly play, well, it's gonna be stuff like Mario, Mega Man, and Sonic. So obviously, platformers are a very dear genre to me, and I always enjoy playing them. Specifically today, 2D platformers, but for a variety of reasons, it would not be practical for me to rank every platformer I've ever played. Because here's the thing, I started playing video games back in the early 90s, and back then, literally every other video game was a platformer. So I'm not even sure I can remember all of the platformers I've ever played. Plus, those of you who are looking at me with a raised eyebrow or something, I've kind of put an unofficial caveat here that the games that I'm going to be ranking today, I will have to have played within the last 20 years or so. And those of you who are bad at math, 20 years ago was 2004. So yeah, if I haven't played it since the 90s, I'm not gonna have a fresh take or any kind of real serious opinion on it. I know I've played, for instance, some of the Aladdin games. I know I've played the original Bubsy, but that was literally back in like 1995 or 6. So that also brings me to one other way this ranking is a bit different. Of course, I'm going to have my own special little rank table, just like the one that I had with the adventure game ranking, because I don't like using the number grades because they don't mean anything to me. Not American, didn't go to an Anglophone school system of any kind. Instead, I'm going to be using my own fangled ranking. But there is not going to be a question mark rank like there was in the adventure game ranking, just because I basically excluded any games that I just have very vague memories of and haven't actually played in a very long time. And instead, we now have three rankings that now represent sort of the bottom half or the bad half of the ranking table, and then three ranks that represent the top half of the ranking. There's also going to be a lot more categories this time around, but I actually tried to work hard to get them down. Now, this ranking is mostly for 2D platformers, and I had to seriously consider whether or not I want to include 2.5D platformers as well. But eventually I landed on the side of allowing them, because otherwise a couple of series that I wanted to talk about would have been kind of underrepresented here. And even with all of this, at the start of this recording of this intro, I'm looking at 122 games that I have to rank. And that's where I have excluded a few games that I don't feel like I can give really fair assessments to. We're talking about stuff like Metroid and Kid Icarus and Ice Climbers, which I think are interesting games in their own right, but I had some reservations about ranking them. But there might be a few situations where during the recording of this ranking as well, I might remember some games that are missing from the ranking tables. So that number is just, at the start here. It might actually end up growing, but who knows, maybe not. So anyway, the first category is going to be basically Mario and Mario adjacent series. This is because otherwise these other series that I don't consider specifically Mario games would have ended up in this whole nebulous other category. So I decided, let's talk about that, but just as with when we come to the Sonic and Sega categories, I'm going to start by ranking the Mario games first, and then we'll go over the other not quite Mario games. The second category is going to be Mega Man, and yes, this includes the original series, the X series, and then a few random sort of Mega Man adjacent titles. Then number 3 is going to be the Sonic and Sega category, that is to say, games that may not necessarily be made by Sega, but which were exclusive to Sega consoles. Then, even though this is a very tiny category, and we're going to probably blaze through it pretty quickly, Castlevania gets its own category. Next is Disney games of various sorts, regardless of the company that made them. And then finally, we have a big other category, which is for all the other platformers made by either some of the other companies that I've already mentioned. And this is where I decided to lump in all the PC platformers, because originally I did want them to have their own category, but it was looking so tiny that I decided, nah, okay, let's just put them amidst the other ones. Otherwise, it's going to be a pretty sad and tiny category. But let's get on with the ranking. Okay, welcome back, and sorry, you are probably going to be noticing a change in the lighting and change in my shirt because I'm obviously going to be recording this over a considerable amount of time. So I'm just gonna acknowledge that right at the top of the video that yeah, you're gonna notice that that these are not gonna be recorded all in all together. But hopefully we'll get through these somewhat efficiently because the categories, for the most part, there aren't that many games per category. Okay, so we're going to start, of course, with the Mario and Mario adjacent titles, like I promised. And we will start with the actual official Mario games, or games that I officially consider to be Mario games. If you have watched me do one of these, if you watch the adventure game ranking video, I mentioned that when I do these ranking styles, the tier list style videos, or I haven't actually done that many videos. I've actually done more streams, but I always like to get my bearings at the very beginning by setting up what is my absolute favorite and what is my absolute least favorite. Oh yeah, and just to quickly stay on the ranks, from top to bottom, there's Wahoo! And It's Alright, Neato, Decidedly Mid, Pretty Meh, and then Not Good, as in bad. And, okay, but we're going to start with the Marios. I am definitely starting with my number one favorite 2D Mario game. Now, my all-time favorite Mario game, of course, is Mario 64, but I am very much a Mario 3 guy. I love, there we go. All right. Oh, I just remembered. I gotta remember how I resize these. It's already been long enough that I'd forgotten. Okay, there it goes. Okay, so like I was about to say, I'm a Mario 3 guy. Mario 3 is my favorite. My favorite 2D Mario game. I just love everything about it. I love the enemies. I love the aesthetics. I think I think the soundtrack's pretty dope. No question about it. This one is top tier for me. It is my. This was when we had the when we got the NES. It was not long after that we got Mario 3, and to this very day, it's my favorite Mario game. It's such a feel-good game. I have a full playthrough of this, a Let's Play of this on my second channel as well, if you want to go check that out. I love the variety of special powers, and despite the fact that there have been other Mario games that have added more powers and stuff, I don't think any of them, just really match the mode and feeling of this game. Okay, if you're a Mario World lover, this game does lack one feature, which is that you can't really replay levels unless you use like the magic flute to go back to an older level. But then you have to replay all the levels. It's not like it just lets you do whatever the hell you want. So if you're into that, then I get it. You might not like Mario 3 that much. But I think just a lot of the features, especially because a lot of the features from this game were carried over in the new Super Mario Brothers titles. And to be fair to Mario World, some of it did end up in Mario Wonder as well, which, yeah, I'm going to talk about that one as well. All right, but my least favorite Mario game. This one is also not this one is not going to be a surprise to anybody because I did a video a few years ago already, where I was talking about my least favorite games from my favorite game franchises, and my least favorite Mario game is this. Oh yeah, by the way, so none of the Mario educational games are getting featured here because I kind of came to the conclusion that they weren't really like platformers, so. Yeah, I'm not gonna waste my breath talking about them then. Alright, so this is the original Mario 2 Lost Levels. I fucking hate this game. It's bad. This game does feel very much like an extra level pack for Super Mario Brothers, and yeah, sure, the graphics have been a little bit updated. Yeah, sure, you get to play as Luigi, but the game's not fun. That's its biggest flaw. The levels are just ridiculously hard, and it doesn't really add anything. Like, it didn't add any new power-ups. It added the poison mushroom. If you're into that, then sure. But like all the levels, the thing I said in my video, and I still stand by that, is that there's no like fairly pedestrian levels in this game at all. It's way too difficult. Uh, there's yeah it's just it's bad. It's unabashedly bad. I have no reservations putting it down here. Like, uh, like this is one of the few. There's not going to be a. I'm just going to like say up front. There's not going to be a whole lot of games that are going to end up down here. A few obvious ones that I'm going to address, but generally speaking, like a game has to be really, really bad in order for it to wind up all the way to the bottom here. And this is a bad Mario game. It is, it's awful. I'm not at all afraid to say that. Now that we established the what's at the top and what's at the bottom, I think it's fair I should talk about the original Super Mario Brothers. Yes, this is the European version because I'm European, and we got the same box artwork as the as the Japanese did. Original Mario was the first video game I ever played, and I still love playing it. This game is timeless, I would say. This game is always fun to just go back to, and I always have a good time with it. And now I'm in a real pickle trying to figure out where to put it. Well, I put in It's Alright. I have the solid category in there, and this game is solid. It's very basic. I think that's kind of like, but, it did so many things right out of the gates so well that it's not a wonder why so many other games tried to emulate it, including quite a few that I'm going to be talking about today, but or in this video. But yeah, I love it. I think the enemies are classic. I think the power-ups are classic. My favorite Mario power-up, as cool as the the raccoon power with the ability of flight is, my favorite Mario power has always been Fire Mario. I love throwing fireballs at enemies. It's super fun. You know what? There is another game that I think is on par with Super Mario Bros. 3. So I'm going to hold off on it, and I'm going to put this one tier down. But I still love this game. I think it is an absolute goddamn classic, as is Super Mario Bros. 2, the Western version. So this game, of course, was not originally a Mario game, and has the most unique gameplay. I also have a full playthrough of this one. I also have a little one-off Let's Play of the original Super Mario Bros. But that was just me trying to get as far as I could in the game without cheating. And I did a poor job of it because the thing with these games, the thing with the old Mario games, is that you need the extra lives. You need to really build up the extra lives if you want to get to the final level, and that was my mistake in that video. I'm willing to admit that I made a terrible mistake not getting enough coins and not getting all the power special lives. Same thing with Mario 2. Mario 2 actually is, relatively speaking, I think actually pretty accessible, but you do need to get the extra lives. You definitely need to get the extra lives. But this one, the thing that I love, okay, so the original Mario 2 or Lost Levels was, gave you the ability to play as Luigi. But this game gave you two more characters, Peach or Princess Toadstool and Toad. And I love that. I love this thing. And also, yeah, Super Mario Bros. Super Show was very heavily lampooned on this game specifically. So that's also another reason why I have a lot of affection for it. I did not play this much as a kid. I played a handful of times on our NES, but I've played it a lot more on my Wii after. And my cousins did have the Super Mario Brothers, Super Mario All Stars collection on Super Nintendo, so I've played that version quite a bit as well. But and also I do have Super Mario Advance. That version is not as good as the original. I prefer the original. All right, then I guess we will just go up the list as we go along. Okay, let's go chronological. Super Mario World, Super Mario Land. I don't have Super Mario Land 2 here. I have played it, but the thing that I said at the very intro applies here. I have not played Super Mario Land 2 since the 90s, so I do not have a fresh memory in my mind how good or bad it was. Now, Super Mario Land reminds me a lot of Super Mario Brothers, ergo, I love it. I think it's a very, very solid game for a very, very early Game Boy game. Level design is great, and I love the level variety as well. The music is also great. Koji Kondo did not make the music for this. I think it was some other guy. But it has these great because it has this great thematic level of variety. You have the pyramid world, then you have the Chinese world, then the rock world, and with these guys who look like the Easter Island heads, and then you have Mario in different vehicles. Like, that's pretty neat. Like, they went really hard on this game, and of course, this is the game that introduced Princess Daisy, although she doesn't really get to do much. And also, has an original villain, which is Tatanga, who's this guy, the alien guy. So, where do I put this? I think I have to put it, this is a super, super solid game. Absolutely recommend it if you love Mario. Despite the fact that it's basically a Game Boy launch title. It's really good. Yeah, so this one goes all the way up here. And again, I really wish I had played Super Mario Land 2, or I had Super Mario Land 2, so I could really compare and contrast between these two. But yeah, this is in good company, this entire settlement. Then Super Mario World. Mario fans are usually kind of split between Mario 3 and Mario World fans. I was never that into Super Mario World. I mean, I played it a lot. It was the first game we got. It literally came with our Super Nintendo. Funny, weird story with that. I don't know how this happened, but the copy of the game that we had already been 100%ed. Like, all the special worlds were open, and all the creatures look weird. And that's the stuff that when we played it the first few times, we didn't understand, why do these enemies look so fucking weird and everything. And then we deleted the save files, started the game from scratch, and then we found out, like, oh, so the game's not like this, actually. And don't get me wrong, I love Yoshi. It's gonna become evident how much I love Yoshi once we get to the Yoshi Games, because they are also included here. But I've always been a little, I don't want to say indifferent, but I've never really liked Super Mario World that much. Although, and I will confess, I have an ongoing series playing through Super Mario World. And the thing is, like, Super Mario World, it is a feel-good game. Don't get me wrong. Every time I play it, I love it. I love the graphics. I love the music. The power-ups are kind of... Yeah, I like the feature that this game has that allows you to carry a power-up with you, which they carried over to Super Mario Wonder. So, that's a neat thing. But you know what? If I'm gonna play a Mario game, it's gonna be one of these four. So just based on that, I'm gonna put it in the neato territory. It's still really good. Don't get me wrong. The other thing is, like, I always kind of end up comparing it. Maybe this isn't fair to compare it to Super Mario Brothers 3, because Super Mario Brothers 3 had entire worlds, and it's such a huge game. And I think it's obvious that in Mario World, they just decided that we were not going to have that many levels, because, they had to pour quite a lot of effort into this one. And don't get me wrong, the Super Mario World has its own thing, which, they encourage exploring the levels and finding secrets. So it's actually a very different kind of experience, because it encourages replay a lot more. And if you're into that, then I fully understand if you think Super Mario World is better than Super Mario Brothers 3. I absolutely get why it's a lot of people's favorite Mario game. But I myself, I was playing playing so many other types of games around this time that Super Mario World just didn't have that big of an impact on me. But like I said, I do like it. So next up is New Super Mario Bros. Wii. And this game is neat. That's why it goes into neato. Yeah, don't get me wrong, I love this game. Me and Minna, we actually played through this together the first time I got it. And I think it does combine a lot of the aspects of previous Mario games that I really like. But the levels are a little mediocre, in my opinion. It's a little too easy. The thing that I don't like And this is a problem with all the new Super Mario Brothers games. The thing that I don't like is that there's no difference between the characters. There's four characters to pick from: Mario, Luigi, and then the two Toads. But they're all identical. They're not changed at all. Although, accidentally picking up your partner and throwing them out, throwing them around is kind of funny. I'm avoiding saying it's decidedly mid because I did enjoy it when I was playing it. I like the music and I like the aesthetics, and like I said, this kind of it recycles. It brought back the item collecting from Mario 3, where you have a whole menu of items to use, and that's what I like about it. New Super Mario Brothers U, I think, just honed the mechanics of New Super Mario Bros. Wii to a whole new level, and the levels are amazing. I love this game. Without question, this is my favorite Mario game on the Wii U. Yeah, so I like it better than Super Mario 3D World. I love this. It has great atmosphere, and I love, especially, I kind of love the fact that you can skip an entire world if you like, but then you can come back and play it again. So it kind of has a little bit of the Super Mario World thing as well. And I love the fact that the Koopalings were the villains. So that was another thing that I like. So it brings it back to Super Mario Brothers 3 as well, because I love that. All right, and here's the newest game, Super Mario Brothers Wonder. And I did like the fact that it allowed you to play as Peach and Daisy. Gameplay-wise, of course, they're not different, but this game had a lot of cool new features, like the new power-ups, the power-ups, but also then the medals that give you all kinds of interesting special abilities. I thought that was a great idea, and this game really leans into the weird aspect that the levels might suddenly completely change character in the middle of things, and that's cool. I love that, and it makes for some very, very chaotic co-op. In fact, I would say the co-op might be a little bit the game's weakness a bit, because it's so easy. I don't like the fact that I don't like the throne mechanic that one of the characters, the crown mechanic, where one of the characters has a crown on and then the game follows their point of view. It makes coordination difficult, because it effectively means one of the players is going to have to be the leader. And if you're not very assertive, then it can make it difficult to have a cohesive experience. So that's a small flaw with the game, but otherwise I do enjoy it a lot. So I think it has to go right up here. I certainly think it's way better than either one of these games. I'm very personable at any rate. All right, and then we're going to the Donkey Kong ranking. And we're going to start with the original Donkey Kong. Yeah, I love the arcade Donkey Kong. I absolutely love it. It's such a simple game, but it's just so enjoyable. Yeah. Now this is going to be another toughy one, because I'm going to have to compare this with Donkey Kong Jr. And I'm just going to be frank here. I do like this game more than Donkey Kong Jr. Even though Donkey Kong Jr. technically is a superior game in some aspects, but there's something just very, very classic about Donkey Kong. So this is going to be hard. I think it would be, as much as I love this game, it would be, I think, a little bit unfair on these guys if I put this on the same ranking. But I always love playing Donkey Kong. So I'm going to put this in the Neato category with these guys. I think this is good company to be in. Then there's Donkey Kong Jr., the game where you play as Donkey Kong's son, and Mario is the bad guy. The only game, I think, where Mario is the bad guy. This is a fun game. This is a real fun game. It's very difficult, and I'm gonna be honest, I don't think the levels are as memorable. There's only 4 levels in both Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong Jr., but the difference is I actually remember the levels from the original Donkey Kong. DK Jr. just, can't compare in that regard, even though production-wise it's actually really good. And I think gameplay-wise it's also slightly superior in some aspects. But I got a level, but like I said, I am very much in OG Donkey Kong camp. But I like both games. Don't get me wrong. I don't think either one of these games is bad. So that's why I'm gonna keep them on the top half of the ranking for now. And also, I just realized like I did lie a little bit. There is one game that I'm gonna have to put in the bottom ranks. Okay, but those are the old school Donkey Kongs. Did not include Donkey Kong 3 because that one's not really a platformer. That one is like its own, that's kind of its own thing. Okay, original Donkey Kong Country. All right, this is going to be super easy for me. I'm going to put this, here in the Nido territory. I'm just not a big fan of original Donkey Kong Country. I think all the other Donkey Kong Country games that have come after this are much more interesting. And especially it comes down to the theming. I think most of the levels are just not that interesting. And this from a thematic point of view, I think gameplay-wise, this game is fun. I think it's still a little too rough around the edges. They lean a little too heavily on, oh, look at the next generation graphics aspect of it, and it kind of lacks personality. The music is fantastic. I think the soundtrack is basically on par with all of the sequels. It might, in fact, be the one area where it's actually superior than any of the sequels. I'm a Donkey Kong Country 2 guy. No surprises here. This goes to the top. I mean, I love this game. I've said it before that this is the game that I used to just pause because I loved listening to the music so much. It has pirates in it. It's pirate themed. You know me. I love Monkey Island as well. Anything pirate related is always a plus for me. Donkey Kong Country 3 this is a weird one because I think a long time ago I kind of considered this. I used to consider this kind of like the black sheep of the series of the trilogy. You know, not as good as the previous Donkey Kong Countries. But you know what? I actually, considering what I just said about Donkey Kong Country, I think this game has a lot more personality. It's got an expansive world. And again, if you're the kind of guy who loves exploring and discovering stuff, this game is absolutely for you. But I do like Donkey Kong Country 2 more. I don't think that it's necessarily, in some aspects, again, I think this game might actually be objectively superior to DKC 2, but I just like it. I just like it more. I just like 2 more. But this one is still really, really good, and I do think it deserves to be in the same company with everybody else. Donkey Kong Country Returns. This was a fun experience, and I really enjoyed the experience. But I think the problem with this game was that it leaned a little too heavily on nostalgia. I mean, obviously it's a 2.5D platformer. That's kind of its thing. But it leaned a little too heavily, especially when you consider it kind of recycles too much from this game specifically, the original Donkey Kong Country, which, don't get me wrong, I thought there are some really good remixes of recognizable Donkey Kong Country music. Production values are great. It's a bit too similar to like I said, to the first one. There's a few levels and a few graphic things about it that are kind of neat, but it's not enough really to set it apart and put it up here. By comparison, this game was fantastic. This is another one from the Wii U, and which I loved. I thought Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze was a huge step up from Donkey Kong Country Returns. Which, don't get me wrong, like I said, I like this game, but I think the music's better. I like the fact that they brought back more Kongs. I think they could have honestly brought back even more. The bad guys were a little all over the place. But, thematically, this was a strong game. I did like it. Now, I don't like the fact that this Donkey Kong, and maybe maybe the Donkey Kong Country Returns also had it that where if you kept dying, the game let you basically cheat by, was it becoming invincible or something? I hated that. I kind of like the challenge in Donkey Kong Country games, so that feature, I wish they would have had an option to turn it off, because I think I once accidentally activated without meaning to. Okay, like I said, there is one bad game here still, and it's this one, Donkey Kong Land. This game's absolute crap. But you know what? I'll give it a little bit of credit. It did have some original ideas. which in my view puts it slightly above Super Mario Lost Levels. Like, don't get me wrong, this is still a bad game. It is absolutely a bad game. I hate it. But there's certain things about it that are neat. I'm gonna put it in the pretty meh category because of that. I don't think it's quite as unacceptably bad as this. It's still pretty bad. Don't get me wrong. I don't think it's a good game. Then Donkey Kong Land 2. You know what? I kind of wish I had just, replayed this a little bit. But, my opinion on it stands because I did play this. Actually, I played this a lot more than Donkey Kong Land. And that's because I didn't have Donkey Kong Country 2 growing up. We didn't have it. I've only gotten it once I became an adult. But I played Donkey Kong Land 2 way more than Donkey Kong Land. So I have a lot more solid memories of it. And Donkey Kong Land 2 is basically just a watered down version of Donkey Kong Country 2. Don't get me wrong, production qualities are great. The music is great. One thing that I don't remember, and this is the reason I wish I had played it a little bit, I don't remember if the sprite flickering was as bad in this as it was in Donkey Kong Land. But I recall enjoying this when I had it on the Game Boy. Well, I still have it, but But there really is no reason to play this if you have Donkey Kong Country 2. So this might be a little unfair, because like I said, I wish I had played this. In fact, between recordings, I might actually just crack open the Super Game Boy just so I can play it a little bit. This seems like such a meaningless game, because it's literally, just a downsized version of this game. That's the other thing that I've always said about Donkey Kong Land 1. Even though I don't like it, I have to recognize at least that it did have some original ideas, and that's at least one positive. All right, Wario Land, aka Super Mario Land 3, though nobody calls it that. The original Wario Land. Never played Wario Land 2 or 3. I did play 4, and we're gonna rank that as well. I love this game. This game is legitimately good. It's in my opinion in contention, and in the same category as Super Mario Land. In fact, I might even go so far as that it could actually potentially even go up here. So now I have to really make a decision. This game really is solid. This is my favorite Wario game without any hesitation. So I am gonna put it up here. It's just so good that it has to go up here. There's no way it couldn't. Then Wario Land 4. I'm not a big fan of Wario Land 4. I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't think it's a bad game. I think the music's nice. The graphics are nice. I don't like the fact that you can't basically die, and it's a collect-a-thon. And I have a big problem with collect-a-thons. That's a big reason, one of many reasons why I'm not that big of a 3D platformer guy myself. But it is a good game, but I have my reservations with it. So now this becomes really difficult. Do I put it here in the Nito territory with everybody else, or does it slip slightly under decidedly mid? Because I'm gonna be honest, after I finished this game, I kind of decided like I don't really have a reason to ever come back to this, and I've kind of kept to that. I have not really played it since. I think I have to put it down here. Like I don't extremely enjoy Wario Land 4, even though I did sink a lot of time into it, played all the way through. But yeah, I'm just not a big fan of it. Wario Land Shake Dimension is a good game. And I like the fact that they included Captain Syrup as a supporting character. Level design is great. The animation, the sprite art animation in this is fantastic. It is a beautiful game. But again, it's kind of the same problem as with Wario Land 4. You can't really die. It's very easy in most ways. I did appreciate, don't get me wrong, I did appreciate that they did use the Wii's motion controls for this, and they did it in fairly creative ways. It's a fun little thing. I'm not sure I would call this a must-have game for the Wii or anything. I don't think it deserves to go up here. I'm gonna put it in the in the same category. I'm gonna put it in the Neato category because it is a neat game. Don't get me wrong. It's fun. It's a fun Neato game, and I do think it's better than Wario Land 4 at any rate. But I don't think it quite deserves to go up here. All right, and then Yoshi's Island. I love this game. I have a Let's Play of this from years ago on this my main channel with my sister Minna. And I absolutely adore this game. I think the graphics are cute as hell, music is excellent, and gameplay-wise, it's also great. This is hands down. This is one of my favorite Super Nintendo games, and it's one of my favorite video games ever. Period. There's no question about it that it has to go here into the top ranking. I absolutely love this game. All around solid package. Now, Yoshi's Story. Yoshi's Story is problematic because it's fair to say that there's some people who absolutely despise this game, and I admit that I was disappointed in it as well when I played it the first time. That really it's this short. But you know what? In later years, I kind of like it. I've started. I've kind of come around to these kind of fun short games. And Yoshi's Story still has a little bit of challenge in it, even though it is a very short game. I'm a little on the fence whether this deserves to go into the It's Alright or the Neato, category. I would not call this an all-time classic, but I do get it's a feel-good game for me, definitely. You know what? I would equate the enjoyment that I have for Yoshi's Story on the same level as I do with Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong Jr. So on the basis of that, I'm putting it in the Neato category. Then Yoshi's Woolly World. Yoshi's Woolly World starts off a little too easy. It does feel very, very kiddie, almost insultingly so. But it's a game that gets better the further you get along. Absolutely adorable design, but it's a little bit forgettable in places. Like, I enjoyed playing through it the first time, but don't get me wrong, it's a good game. But now I'm thinking a little bit like, you know what? I'm not gonna overthink it. It's the final game in this category. I'm gonna put it here in the Neato category because I do like it. I do think it's a neat game. But I can't come up with any reason why I would choose to play this over Yoshi's Story. Alright, and now we're continuing with the ranking with the Mega Man and Mega Man adjacent titles, and I think after this, I'm gonna have to cut it off for the first part. But yes, you can probably see another shirt. This means a different day. But I actually did dig up the old Game Boy Pocket because I wanted to really confirm that Donkey Kong Land 2's ranking was, appropriate. So I played a little bit of Donkey Kong Land 2, and now that I have replayed it a little bit, it was pretty solid. Sprite flickering wasn't nearly as bad as the first game, and I think decidedly mid is appropriate. But okay, so now we're into the Mega Man and Mega Man adjacent titles. And so the way we're going to do this is that I'm going to start with the classic Mega Man series, games 1 through 11. And then I'm going to do the X series, 1 through 8 minus X7, because X7 is not... it's not officially a 2.5D game. And then the Mega Man adjacent titles, you'll find out, soon enough what that entails. But let's get on with the original series. You know what? For this, rather than starting with my favorite and least favorite, I think I'm going to go chronological, just to keep things simple. And we're going to start with Mega Man 1. Okay, Mega Man 1 is a divisive title. Let me just say, it is not the game you want to start with if you want to start playing Mega Man, because it's not very beginner friendly. It's very brutal. But here's the thing: I said this also in my series overview, that I have actually grown to really, really like Mega Man 1. It's actually, these days, it is absolutely one of my favorite titles from the series. Now, that brings a little bit of a problem for me how to accurately rank it, because I think it's a neat game. I like it. It puts me in a good mood when I play it these days because I know the ins and outs of it. But don't get me wrong, like, this is a game that you absolutely don't want to jump into blind if you've never played Mega Man before. Like, absolutely try Mega Man 2 or 3 first. I think it has to go into the Nito territory at least. But I don't know. I don't know. I got a feeling like the Nito territories, the Nito category is going to have a lot of titles in it anyway. And I genuinely do like this. You know what? This is going to be a completely biased pick, but I am putting it, it's all biased because it's my ranking anyway. But I'm going to put it in It's Alright because because I would definitely pick playing Mega Man 1 over quite a few of the other classic titles. I know that sounds really weird because, like I said, it's not a beginner-friendly game in any way, shape, or form, but I really like it. Alright, then Mega Man 2. This is like the ultimate classic. This is the Mega Man game that, other Mega Man games aspire to be the all-time classic. And yeah, I'm using the European box arts for these because, well, number one, just because I'm European, but also because I legitimately don't like the American box arts, and this one looks a bit weird, but I like it. I think it's a fun box. Okay, so Mega Man 2, I think, people will have my head on a pike if I don't put it in the Wahoo or the top rank. Obviously, it deserves to go here. I'm not denying that at all. I've just said, though, that in the past, I think people kind of overlook some of the obvious flaws with Mega Man 2, but you know what? Mega Man 2 is a great pick-up and play title. Like I said, I absolutely would recommend starting with number 2 and then trying out number 1 to see just how different they are. All right, then Mega Man 3, and this is a funny one because this is the only one that I actually own as a physical copy. The PAL Mega Man games are actually kind of rare. I'm not sure why that is. I did get to play the PAL, and when I say PAL, I mean the PAL NES Mega Man games are pretty rare, but I think the Super Nintendo ones are also pretty rare. Yeah, Mega Man 3, it introduced a lot of stuff that would become like, norms for the series. We have Rush, we have Proto Man. There's a lot of cool stuff in Mega Man 3. I don't maybe love this game as much as the other ones. I still think it's a good game. Don't get me wrong. But now I have to make some tough decisions here regarding the ranking. I'm thinking about the other ones. Oh yeah, another thing that you might have noticed, I have actually extended the rank board because I started to realize, like, oh, Nito is going to get really, really crowded. You know what? I think this game is still solid enough that I think I have to put it in the same rank as Mega Man 1. So, I do think it's a solid title, absolutely. But I've always had a little bit of I have a bit of an iffy. I think honestly, other Mega Man games are actually more interesting. They're not necessarily better than 3. Okay, Mega Man 4. This is the first Mega Man game I ever played. It was also the first Mega Man game that Oh yeah, and also I've done a lot of Mega Man Let's Plays. There's a big Let's Play list on my Let's Play channel, but actually quite a few of those Let's Plays are actually on my main channel. So, Mega Man 4 was the first Mega Man game I played. It too is not very beginner friendly. The difficulty hike is pretty massive when you start out, but there are a lot of great features about this one. I love the intro. This introduces the Super Shot, and I think the bosses are actually like pretty memorable overall, pretty neat. But it's a bit of a weird one. It's not like wholeheartedly very like polished. And I know some people will make the argument also for Mega Man 3 that it's not a super polished game. I get that. But I think 3 overall still is a little bit more solid than number 4. Number 3's biggest flaw is I think it has too many, it has the most levels, I think, of the original NES Mega Man games. And some of those levels are a little, not great. 4 is good. 4, but I don't think it's as good as 3. for the difficulty hike, the challenge in 4 is the thing that I always have a hard time going back. That I have always had a little bit of trouble with. But it's a very unique. I would say it's a definitely a Mega Man game worth trying. All right, and number 5. This is going to be a weird one for me to rank, or well, it's not a weird one for me to rank, but people might be a bit surprised where I'm going to rank it, because if you did not know, you'll know it now. This is my favorite Mega Man game. I know it's not really a lot of other people's favorites, but I love the level variety, the production quality. There's a lot of neat little details. I think the intro's pretty dope. Actually, yeah, the story. Usually I don't care that much for the stories in Mega Man games, but the story in this one is actually kind of neat. I mean, it's unfortunately a little bit predictable because it's sort of the same story as in all the later NES Mega Man games. But yeah, this is a feel-good game for me. This puts me in a good mood every freaking time. It absolutely deserves to go, up here. Like, don't get me wrong, like Mega Man 2 is a timeless classic, but 5 is my absolute favorite. 5 is the one that I really love. And, me and Aqualung, we've done a lot of cartoons with these Mega Man characters. And I don't think it's a coincidence that one of my favorite cartoons that we ever did was for number 5. Granted, there are Mega Man games where individual parts of them, are, better. I would say Mega Man 2's soundtrack, for instance, is definitely better than 5's. Some might argue that some of the gameplay features in 3 are better than in 5, but I just, like I said, it's a feel-good game for me. Number 6, Mega Man 6. So, in case you don't know, this game was not originally released in Europe, but I did play it back in the emulation days, and then I did download it for the Wii U and everything. 6 is kind of like it's a bit of an underappreciated title. But at the same time, I kind of see why people don't really talk about it that much. I don't think it's bad, but it's a little. I don't want to say decidedly mid because that's a completely different thing. I love the what you see in the box as well. I love the Rush armors. I think the Rush armors are a great addition. I think some of the Robot Masters are great. I even think some of even the soundtrack's pretty good. But the thing is, like, nothing about it is so outstanding that there wouldn't be another Mega Man game that does stuff better. So it's kind of lands very, like, smack in the middle. It doesn't have anything extremely unique. I mean, maybe the fact that all the Robot Masters are supposed to come from all over the world, that's kind of a fun gimmick. Don't get me wrong. It is a fun game, absolutely. Sometimes I do get the hankering to play Mega Man 6, absolutely. But it's not in the top tier of Mega Man games in any way, shape, or form. Now, 7 is the weird kind of outlier of the classic series because it's the only one that was released on the Super Nintendo. I mean, if you don't count. Yeah. Okay, I just realized there is one game missing here. We'll come back to that when we're in the Mega Man adjacents. But 7, I think, is a fun game. It has a lot of fun aspects and a lot of fun features. And just like number 5, this is one of the only Mega Man games where I actually care about the plot, the story. I think the storyline is actually this game's biggest strength. And then it has a kind of a goofy, kind of a cartoony sensibility to it, which I also like. I'm a bit torn, but I think 7 has a little bit more character than 4 and 6. And on the strength of those merits, I'm willing to put it here in the It's Alright category. It's a tough one for me to rank, but I think that's the fair thing to do. Next up is Mega Man 8. And sorry, I'm jumping around on the GIMP a little bit because weirdly it plays these. Maybe it's because of the file types. Maybe the file types is what screwed that up. Alright, so Mega Man 8. This game is very animu, as I like to say. But and this is another weird outlier because it's the only classic Mega Man series game on the PlayStation, if you don't count like the racing game or whatever, which I don't and I've never played it anyway. Mega Man 8 is always the one that people have a lot of reservations about saying anything good about because it was kind of a weirdo and very cartoony, bad voice acting. But I absolutely love Mega Man 8. It jumped right to the peak of one of my favorites when I played it for the first time, and I was honestly a bit shocked by the fact that I've been told for so many years. I don't know, is it the bad voice acting that people always hold against it? Because that's dumb. You know, the bad voice acting is the reason I love the first Resident Evil, for instance. And I think the voice acting actually, enhances. I think the only Mega Man game where bad voice acting kind of detracts from the experience is actually X4. I can't watch any of the cutscenes in X4 because of the voice acting. And actually, that's kind of my thing about this, though. I don't like the story very much. This is where the storyline of this one, I think, it was a little all over the place, and it doesn't add much to the experience. The gameplay experience is fun. I love the production quality, and I do think the funny voice acting, definitely in-game, it enhances the mood. And then in the cutscenes, it's sometimes funny, but it's not like, it's not the same as the Resident Evil funny voice acting because I always get a big goofy smile watching those cutscenes in Resident Evil because the acting is so outrageously bad. But 8 is, in my view, I think it's a slightly underappreciated title in the Mega Man series, frankly. But I'm not gonna put it in the top ranks. I was a little. I think I was a little bit more enamored with it when I was the first couple of years when I played it, because the first time I ever played it was only after I got the Mega Man Legacy Collection, which was like in, I don't know, 2018 or something, and I was very, very enamored with it. Now enough time has passed that okay, there are things about Mega Man 8 that I'm not a big fan of. Maybe some of the levels are a little too long, and like I said, I don't really like the story, even though I think the cutscenes, I think the voice acting adds a lot of character, and actually that's the number one thing I think is really fun about it. So I think this is in good company. It is definitely one of the Mega Man games that I enjoy playing the most, so that's why it gets up there. Okay, Mega Man 9. This is another hard one for me. I liked Mega Man 9 when it came out. I was excited about it because, main series Mega Man game after almost a decade. I always keep remembering Mega Man 9 came out in 2009, but apparently it was 2008. Or maybe they completed it in 2008 and then released it in 2009. It was fun seeing a new Mega Man game after such a long time. In retrospect, it's a huge disappointment that they didn't add anything of real substance, except Splash Woman. So Mega Man series got its first female robot master, and they never did it ever again. Yeah, and I didn't like the fact that the gameplay is just, Mega Man 2 style. They got rid of the slide and super shot. And Mega Man 9, yeah, this one is a hard one. It's hard for me to come back to 9. Okay, the soundtrack was actually really good. In stark contrast to 10, I think the soundtrack was great, and I think there were, I think the Robot Masters were actually kind of fun. So this has a fun identity, but it's kind of it's a bit of a letdown in retrospect when you think that they could have done so many other things with this game. And I get the idea of going back to the basics was the whole reason why it got made in the first place. Capcom was kind of trying to recapture what had made Mega Man great so many years ago, but I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to put it here in the decidedly mid, just because there isn't a whole lot there to go back to. Which brings us naturally to Mega Man 10, and Mega Man 10 was a letdown. Legitimately, I did not have a good time with this game when it first came out. In the Legacy Collection, you can unlock the Proto Man and base right from the get-go, and if you're gonna play this game as anybody, play it as base. 10 is my least favorite original series Mega Man game. I don't think it's as bad as Lost Levels. I think this game deserves to go here with Donkey Kong Land into the pretty meh, because everything about it. Because that's the thing. Me and Ken or Aqualung have talked about this as well. Both of us seem to have a pretty similar take on 10. That it's not like a horrible game, but there's just nothing outstanding about it. Everything is a little too lukewarm. There are no outstanding features. There are no outstanding robot masters except Sheepman. All the other ones are whatever. And the levels aren't a lot of fun. It's too hard. It's actually harder than Mega Man 9 in most ways. Except, and then you have the easy mode, which completely devastates the challenge. Like, there's no, like, I wish there was, like, a half-house difficulty setting between the original game and the easy mode, but there isn't. The best thing that you can do is, you know, like I said, you can play as Bass, but then you're playing as Bass, you're not playing as Mega Man, which kind of defeats the point, I think. Then Mega Man 11, this is a game that I have also slightly mixed feelings on. I think it's a solid enough of a game. Music-wise, I think absolutely way better than 10. I would say on par or above 9, absolutely. I like the fact that it wasn't trying to go for this retro style, and I love the fact that it did bring back the classic gameplay features. I think inadvertently, funnily enough, it kind of committed a sin that I think is common with a lot of the games from 4 onward, all the way into 8, which is that there's a bit of feature bloat in it. But I think the Robot Master roster is genuinely better than 10. It's an all-around neat game. Not one of my favorites, I gotta say. I was a little lukewarm. I did play it all the way through. I have a full Let's Play of this, but I think it's gonna go here in the Neato. I don't think there's anything about it that, in retrospect, as I'm trying to think of it, would put it like above. Like I don't come back to 11 very easily either, but I think in comparison to 9 and 10, it absolutely is the best of the most recent canonical Mega Man game. All right, and then we come to the X series, and the X series. I'm gonna have some weird takes on this one. I think people are gonna be a bit weirded out, so just fair warning. And I'm gonna go chronological again. I kind of hate that I don't. I kind of would have wanted to have included X7, honestly, because unlike a lot of people, I actually like X7. Okay, but the original Mega Man X. I said in the series overview that X1 is objectively the best game of the series. Like, yeah, I don't think there's any doubts about it. It's not my personal favorite. Let's make that clear. But, like, if I don't put X up here, that would be kind of like not putting Mega Man 2 up here. Like, you know, I have to recognize it for what it is. Absolutely fantastic soundtrack. In fact, I would say Mega Man X1 is probably one of the few Mega Man games where I think the soundtrack is legitimately better than Mega Man 2. Gameplay is excellent. I think I love the Mavericks. The thing with X, though, you have to remember it's a very different gameplay experience from Mega Man, from the original Mega Man. You wouldn't think it was that way, but there's a bigger, way bigger emphasis on looking for secrets and finding all the armor parts and things, and some people might not be into that. I'm gonna be honest, like, I'm not necessarily even into that. I kind of like playing without the armor because I just like the more pure X experience or whatever. But yeah, X1, absolutely solid game, so I had to go all the way up there. X2 is one of my least favorites. Even though, you know, it's actually very close, you know, in many ways to X1. But it really didn't add anything of actual substance to the series. That's the thing that always that's the biggest disappointment for it. And granted, I've gone to this game, come back to this game more times in recent years to try to kind of see, like, is there more there? Is there something that I'm not seeing? And don't get me wrong, I think I am doing that has actually, one of the things that I always why I had a hard time coming back to this as well is that X2 is also much harder than X1. It's not very beginner friendly. That, along with the fact that I think everything about it is a pretty meh, was one of the things that really didn't make me dislike it a lot. Like, this game's not, like, awful. Like, objectively speaking, this game's not bad or horrible. There's a few musical pieces in it that I like. There's a couple of Mavericks in it that I like. But there's just nothing really outstanding to go back to. There's not like an all-out reason to play X2. There's just nothing super like unique about it. It's too much like it's like all the other X games, except without anything to help it stand out. But it is better than 10, I will grant that. So it has to go here into the decidedly mid for me, because I have given it a lot of rope. I've given it a lot of chances, but I just can't find anything. I just cannot find anything about it that I really, really love or enjoy. X3. Now, this is another divisive game, but, this is my personal favorite. This is the only one that I have actually played on Super Nintendo. I know, weird. But I love the soundtrack. I love the hard rock soundtrack. This game's hard. Don't get me wrong. This is another game that you do not want to jump into if you've never played Mega Man before. Like if you play Mega Man X and you find that you're kind of with X, like X1, then I advise you don't play X3. You're not gonna have a good time. If you play X1 and you think, wow, this is a fun game, and you want to crank up the difficulty a little bit, then yes, absolutely, you'll like X3. Like, granted, I do think that there are some bullshit. There are some definitely bullshit things about this. Like the number one is the enemy respawn rates. They're ridiculous. But I like this game. I genuinely like. The soundtrack is one of my favorites. It's not as good as X1 in that regard. And some of the production quality is a little hit or miss in places, but I love the Mavericks. I love most of the levels. It's very, very unique. It has its own character, and that's the reason I really like it. Now, X4 is another one that I'm a little split on. I'm not a big fan of it. Even though the production quality is pretty slick, all the things that make me love Mega Man 8 are actually things that I don't really like about X4. Like I said, it has bad voice acting, but it's not funny bad voice acting. It's just kind of meh. But this is actually something that I will have to give it credit for, and that's probably why I'm willing to put it in Nito rather than decidedly mid, because I think this actually might be one of the more beginner-friendly X titles. It's not too bad difficulty-wise. I think this is actually one that I could recommend as a first X game, because the bosses aren't very hard, the levels are pretty forgiving, and this was the first of the PlayStation Mega Man games, X games, so your master weapons recharge with every death, so that also gives you a little bit of a leg up in the boss fights and whatever. But I don't really come back to this very readily either, so it's a bit hard. I think I like it the slightest bit more than X2, but I'm not a big fan of the storyline or anything, so that's why I have to put it in the Nito. It's still a good game. It's a good game. I don't have any grudges against it. X5 is another one of my personal favorites, so I'm gonna put that. So it's gonna go into its alright territory. But just like with X3. I do not recommend this as a first Mega Man X game. It has a weird structure because it basically has a countdown clock essentially as a part of its storyline, and basically playing this game without having played the previous X games doesn't make any sense anyway, because you're not gonna know what the hell's going on. But I love the music. I love the Mavericks in this. I love the production quality. Oh yeah, and this game has like multiple alternate endings that you can get and stuff like that. It's a game that has a lot to dig into if you like that kind of stuff. But I will grant it's not for everybody. This is a very personal pick for me, just like X3. Like X3 and 5, I think, are games that are actually kind of divisive, Mega Man X fandom. But I personally like both of these. But I do like X3 better than X5. I will say X3 is probably the Mega Man X gameplay, the Mega Man X game that I play the most. Okay, and then there's no going around it. We are going to have to talk about X6, the worst Mega Man game. I'm saying it right now. This game fucking sucks. I hate it. It's not fun. And the thing is, like, okay, X5 has a lot of, like, gimmicky levels. X4 has a couple of gimmicky levels. And actually, Mega Man 5 also has gimmick levels, but they're fun gimmick levels. X4's gimmick levels are kind of mid. They're whatever. They're not bad or good. X5 has a couple of bad gimmick levels, but the rest of them then are fine. This game, they just came up with all kinds of stupid bullshit with this. I have a one-off of playing X6 because I wasn't obviously going to finish it because it's also like a rushed sequel. That's another one that's pretty obvious. And also because X5 was originally going to be the final game in the X series, but then Capcom just forcibly pushed another sequel out because, of course, it's Capcom. What the fuck do you expect? I hate this game. This game is terrible. And you can suffer me through quite a few of the levels in that little one-off. But I didn't even get to show. I think I played kind of badly. I think I didn't even get to show like some of the most absolutely mind-numbing bullshit things because it's just impossibly difficult. And I get the feeling like that was just the point. Like they just intentionally wanted to make a dickishly difficult X game, and yeah, it's not a fun. It's not at all fun. I'm a little mixed on X8 because, like I said, I really wanted to include X7 because X7 is very rough around the edges. It was a first attempt of turning the series into 3D, and it didn't completely work. But it wasn't completely bad either. Like I said, I like X7, and I think if they had focused a bit more on the 3D segments and just left out all the 2.5D garbage, they would have made the game. The game would have been actually solid, but no. And instead, they threw out the 3D segments and just made a 2.5D sequel to it. So they kind of threw the baby out with the bathwater, in my opinion, when they decided to do this game. Now, having said that, X8 is a fun game. I think the gameplay is better, legitimately, than in X4's. But in X4, I mean X7. But the thing with X7 is that the 2.5D segments are my least favorite. Those were the parts of the game that I didn't enjoy. They made them much better, but then they also just made that the game. I like the medal system that allows you to upgrade your characters. I think that was actually kind of fun. It kind of gets rid of the, level exploration thing, except maybe there were things that you can find in the levels as well. I have a full playthrough of X8 if you're curious to see me play through the game. And some of the new characters are fine, but I don't really come back to this one either. I think I'm going to put this in the Nito as well. Like I said, Nito is going to be pretty crowded. That's why I extended the table there. Don't get me wrong, I do think this game is more fun than X4 personally. I think it has a lot more character. Now I remember. Like, there are a few levels where you absolutely have to have Axel. Now, I don't mind Axel, but I know some Mega Man fans don't like Axel. But he's necessary to beat some of the levels, so that might be a deal breaker for some people. But I'm just warning you. That's just how the cookie crumbles. Now we're done with the X series and the classic series and the X series. So now it's time for these last few Mega Man adjacent titles. I'm gonna start with the ones that Capcom made. So Mega Man 2 Game Boy. This is the only Game Boy Mega Man game that I own. Yeah, and this one is a bit, infamous a little bit. I like it. It's basically a combination of Mega Man 2 and 3. So two of the best NES Mega Man games. So I like the combination of features and a combination of bosses in this. The most polarizing thing about this is the soundtrack, which I personally enjoy. But people complain a lot about the production on the soundtrack, and okay, fine, if it bothers you, whatever. The fact that it has original music, period, is kind of a neat thing. It's a kind of a feather in its cap, and I legitimately enjoy this one a lot. So I'm gonna put it in the it's all right territory. No, I think we can. I think we can still. I can just barely make the rest of this work. I'm just gonna have to move my camera a little bit because I noticed that I keep blocking the table, the top half of the table. So the next one to talk about, and this was another one that I had forgotten to include because I have played it and I have even reviewed it on my blog a long time ago. Mega Man at Base. So this game was originally released as Rockman and Forte for the Super Famicom, or the Japanese Super Nintendo, if you will. Good production quality. The Game Boy. I did not play this on Game Boy Advance, but I did download it for the Wii U and I played it on that. Now this game, I have some opinions on. Big problem with it is that playing as Mega Man in this is almost completely worthless because the levels are so hard. The game is designed for base. They should have just dropped Mega Man from the title. Just made it base. Just call it the game base. Because you basically, if you're not playing, you either play as base or you're not having a good time. Some of the music is fine. Some of the levels are fun. I haven't touched this in a long while though, and I have to say I'm not maybe the biggest fan of it. I'm not sure. I don't think it maybe deserves to go down all the way down here. I'm gonna put it here in the in the Nido territory because it's kind of a fun, unique title. You know, kind of a post Super Nintendo game, and it's kind of fun because they recycled some of the assets from Mega Man 8, and it's a bit rough around the edges. Like if you can get into it, I think you'll have a good time. But I have a bit of a hard time just getting into it myself. And then another Mega Man adjacent game. Now I'm counting this as a Mega Man adjacent just because Capcom didn't actually make this, but this is the Mega Man DOS, Mega Man for MS-DOS, produced by High Tech Expressions and a guy called Steven Rosner, who was entirely responsible for the whole game. This game's infamous for a number of reasons. I actually have a bit of an affection for these dopey DOS games. Judging the game on its own merits, yeah, it's not good. The play controls are really janky. You fire with space, jump with J. And there's no music, everything's PC speaker bloops and bleeps. So, the production qualities are pretty lousy on this one. The game itself isn't actually that hard. It's actually surprisingly easy for a Mega Man game. I'm judging this on its own merits, and it's this one. The big sin with this one is the fact that you can barely hit most of the enemies. I can actually have fun with this game myself. I think it's actually more fun to play than X6. So I think on the back of that, I'm just going to have it here in the pretty meh territory. Because it is pretty meh if you just play the game by itself. If you play it the way I play it, which is that I use DOSBox to map the controls onto an actual controller rather than keyboard, and then I play MIDIs of Mega Man music in the background as I'm playing it, then you can have a good time. I usually have a good time with this when I play it myself. And I have a full playthrough of this on, I don't remember if it was on this channel or my Let's Play channel. Alright, then Mega Man 3 for DOS, and this box art is incredibly misleading because this is actually just the American box art for Mega Man 3, the NES game, but, this is not a port in any way. It's a completely original game, just like the first DOS game. But this is a legitimately better game than the first DOS game. They actually did, Steven Rosner actually did a lot of improvements. There's more levels, the Robot Masters are more distinct in my opinion, and you actually have to learn to use the master weapons in this if you want to beat it, like you don't in the first DOS game. And actually very recently tried to beat this game for my Let's Play channel. I didn't quite succeed. I didn't get to the final boss fight, but this game's a lot more robust than the first DOS game, and on the back of that, I'm willing to put it here in the decidedly mid. Again, I can't really put it in the Nido just because if you just look at the game by itself, it's not that great. But if you can do it the same things that I said before, play it with a controller rather than a keyboard, play it with some music playing in the background, you can actually have a good time with this. Now, the big sin of this one is that the levels are a lot more confusing. They did a lot of labyrinthine garbage with this one. But usually it is that you're trying to get to one of the four corners of the level. That's basically kind of the gimmick with this one. The final Mega Man adjacent title for this ranking, or this part of the ranking, here is Mighty Number 9, the spiritual successor for Mega Man, created by Keiji Inafune, and a little bit infamous because of the Kickstarters and the more Kickstarters and then they tried to have the game released on every platform. It was shredded by the critics. This is a game that I have the thing is I like this game. I don't like the way they handled the development and the release, and it all came off a little shady and whatever. But it's an absolutely fine, playable Mega Man game in my opinion, and I actually personally like this better than Mega Man 11. I really like the bosses, I really like the music. Granted, I like the music better when it's in the BitTune. I think the BitTune versions actually sounded a bit better because they highlighted the sound and whatever. I think the characters are fun. There are a couple of gimmicky levels that that are not my personal favorites or anything. I have a one-off of playing this on my Let's Play channel as well. If you want to check it out, I actually did have a good time with it, and it plays like a kind of a fun mix of classic Mega Man and X a little bit. So that's another reason why I like it. But yeah, I think it's also it's a game that spent way too long in development. They should have woulda, shoulda, coulda. There was a lot of dumb decisions that were made with this game, and that's why it's now considered infamous and whatever. But I think it's a fun game. I would absolutely recommend this if you like Mega Man. It's a really, really fun game. I'm going to put it here, just to recognize that, into the it's alright territory, because, you know, it is alright. And yeah, that concludes the Mega Man portion of this ranking. And I'm probably going to have to go extend the rank table again, but when we come back, it's the Sonic stuff then.